replace the legs that give way to high winds, and I will wait for the meteorite. An old metal hope stalled me when the flies and mosquitoes solemnly retired speaking. I received a rambling museum to bring back some father and started pointing to the unmapped swamps and remnants of standing pianos. I saw for the first time that the yellow bark of a tree was a terse remark for when we lost one beginning after another. So I combed the mountains for a horse that could barely be seen high up in the trees. I wanted to know why she climbed so high and to hide what I collected, to pack it away in her diamond hitch. Look there and there and there. Those floating specks are hundreds of baled papers bent up like two bears dancing. Dear woman, your retina must abandon the sun, and you must remove the matches from my hand. We will then hear the mirror grieve its light. Now that we have held mourning like a dead dog, your words resound as vivid as a deep sea wooing in low tones, for me to drop my net into and walk across with shaking hands. There is wind being slowly cut like glass when I open my eyes to the errors of delicate sense. I use my third name when breaking the long knife, but I grow fainter and fainter, measuring frozen tides and writing with my jaw. The angel, lavish with choice, dares to strike through my heart. She is shrouded like an invasive surgeon with her worrying axe. The fool's divine spark forever coming loose from my cup as it falls from my crossing fingers. So I feel like I should stop there and maybe say a little bit about these so far. As I said, they were written over the course mostly of 30 days. I was writing them for every day of the last month I lived in Vermont over the summer before moving. And if anyone can remember June of 2020, we were in the thick of a lot of things going on, COVID and lockdown and protests all over the country and a lot of other things. And it all kind of compounded for me in this last month of before moving and coming here. So yeah, every day of the month before leaving and like while packing my apartment, I was writing these poems. I shall fill in the deafness of the women who told you to be good with a seasoned conviction that hell is damp wood in a virgin's heart, and that gold will always be a chaste animal with skin torn to pieces. I was sore at heart, a lavender tint, my head like tinder, hair raised and stranded. I tried to shout in the wilds of the dining room when dynamite was handled without word. But it did not end, the resounding hammering at the fire that your obsession brought you. The arc light went out, and several vague forms emerged in the dark living room. They spoke to me in women's notes. We are not hunters. Our knives are but mirrors and shovels. They shine so we can dig ourselves out of darkness. But I myself have no food without killing, and when my erratic days are through, I will lie on the green floor with the midnight sun, not under. One woman slid her knife under a thin layer of my flesh. Gold, gold, gold. But at times the gold is only a mirror, faintly iridescent, a window full of moonlight. The strange contrast between death and dawn is an intimation of night's secret counsel, here to let me choose a knife or a tomb for the skin of the magnetic morning. The return of sunlight that we molded with lamped hands carries along a warm wind. The craved fruit of effort gorged by relief, like bread on the table before my sun, these pleasant suns of monotony. Do you see how magnetically they rise? How the ascent follows as steady as a line of flags, our faces day and night overflowing with the long lines of the new year. Land was useless, along distances scared and tasted. We started to back out as though bound. We yelled from ashore. The climax poorly charted, you scrimmaged the sensation across a paragraph. What you're taking is the forgotten towering fever that brooked the only wind. What I think at times of great transpiring is if you cornered them, you would hear the whole was the vessel, but you think you're the shortcut. Once having a taste upon the tongue that I was never able to name, I ran a mad dash for water, for the first time thoroughly tasted, which seemed fatal to me, and once quite definite. I distinctly remember silver knives on the breath, glimpses of the night were at last passing this imaginary line. We were nearing the doubt dividing islands into salt. Dead pause, the hush, it did go on and on, making pressure to take on skins and salts, to generate a slight current of these strong mouths. Some desire too often not to crawl along the memory and return time to time to let this hold fall. I see you loose with me and a snare. Promises have proved ill delusion expressed into open water. The loom of our position welcomes the best of the last to tell us more. We never had the luck we were told had dispatched in our souls. A great many made many with an axe, decisioned or approved. The good in either case, the mind obtained to stand the summer, the night being clear, the last desires I had said I loved so well. I ran, denied having reached the summit. It was only a rock from the grave that this boulder had taken for its new polished face. Later, I found the headstone, granite bound, so that I might swing the pendulum for the last time and ring the heavy instrument of brass and cast iron. So that I might swing the pendulum for the last time and ring the heavy instrument of brass and cast iron that I was awakened by, so I could hear the names across the boulder. Recognition would shortly appear. There are a few names for which no verification can be obtained. The goddess, the house, the guard, the trigger, the doctor, the earth, the infant, the year, the stomach, the anxiety. A normal agony blowing up the brittle, a gale in all hands, the baby peeking out from her red ribbon. I remember dropping to yell and dance with no protection, never to leave. The hammer moved in the oil, written then, to no avail, knowing the gun was my belly, round and wheeled. The bullet she bit at the wound is what ailed. If it was red, you could take it for granted, and if it was alabaster, though coal-laden, the wreckage was picked up. The gun was a mother, busy with her summer litter, nevertheless bringing us home with her heavy salvage. Young vessels should be at the grindstone, trying to reason with the stronger, to swing their own pendulums. Organs reach out from knives, and valuable days go missing. What was carved out would have been hope. Precious time was discovered at the fingers and uncanny knowledge at the head. The crowd is a miracle. 20 miles it spoons out of wood, not knowing just what would show up in the year. We soon pick some 100 on the qui-vive, heavy with the rise and fall of consequence, dragged considerable distances over affairs to move down runways of staves. Now at higher edges, we make rocks into handles, while the murderous serve rather than go back to the running side of sound. It will not be long before a word is overheard. The ship was the rib of reason. The ship was unable to follow me. The ship was frowning with a fist in her face. The ship was a very quiet widowhood. The ship was nothing but a longhand manuscript. The ship was negatives converted to positives. The ship was now experienced in looking. The ship was an off-year stripped bare. The ship was a council of war decreed. The ship was the guttural ejaculations of fear. The ship never happened but could not be denied. The ship was limping back to swell up. The ship was beginning to be an alarm. The ship was right there on the floor while this book was written. You know the storm went out, and I believed you were down there, for it has never been a different story, living as a key forged full of hell. A severe shock reached forward. 3 days we feared you had gone. I was worried you were held with it and sketched memory in the fog. Everybody speaks of this recollection in a meridian headed for farewell. 20 years was about as much good as circling a black eye. To have made you this trouble, it's been nothing. I think we have a couple more. I lift the floor in one corner, concentrating on virgin land. No sign of it anywhere, only footprints of the feast, after which I was wise about the taste of oil, wiser about the taste of blood. I am unbearable and unwilling to give up the ghost for its worth in scrap. I tell you I chopped off the head like a roof the storms had blown, regretting that the best was over too soon. When I came across the heart of this little hunt, dented open by starvation fish, I ran this knife to measure the flow of melt, and in tasteless time, I filled 2 cups. The heat was a hunger so great it left their bodies, only to be forced carving out the rigors of a heart now bone. Out of the water you must warp, and to go home you must point, but it is in this way that we island ourselves. "400 feet high I leaned over the raucous cries. None of us caught the eye near high noon, down miles through the fall, soon to lie in the lap of plenty. It was where it was, for it undoubtedly burrowed the houses of the gold seekers in sand. It was night that crushed the rocks. We never revisited the spot. I have no knowledge of the extreme end of the crater union of man, taken to be a trench that might have been a cannonball, when fossils essayed to go with the decision to abandon land. "2 years following to seek, and at last we could see the range. It was a horse's back laid with grass and streams for us to navigate. So loaded was the water with silk it rubbed against the night. We made contact with its grandeur, and with this we made our way leaving. To climb the thaw, to chance the wall the axe refused, and we returned as though dependent on several occasions. To knife and sketch the wide field where we were bitten with the lure, to follow the headwaters, to persist. We were at the drawing board with the chance to begin. We were at the beginning with the rewards of fever." Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kylie. That was incredible. It's such a pleasure getting to hear you read the words and also see the visuals. And like, I especially loved like hearing about the knife imagery and seeing like how tactile those moments are in the making. So now we're gonna be transitioning into asking Kylie a couple of questions about the process of writing and publishing this collection. And just to reintroduce myself, I'm also one of the editors-in-chief of the Mount Holyoke Review, here with Liz and Flannery.
I'm another one. Hi, I'm Liz Lewis, and I'll start, Kylie, by asking you, could you maybe just say a little bit about how you got up to this moment of publishing a book? Like what led you here?